Hi, everyone. You are listening to For Those We Lost. I'm your host, Jennifer Sullivan. Thank you for being here. If you've lost a loved one to COVID and would like to share your story on the show, please send me an email. My email address is forthosewelostpodcast@gmail.com. Or you can go to the website, forthosewelostpodcast.com, and click on the contact button and reach me that way as well. This show won't ever have a members area or episodes that you have to pay to listen to, but there are expenses to hosting a podcast. And if you'd like to help, you can support this show at buymeacoffee.com/forthosewelost. In this show, people share their stories of losing a loved one to COVID. As the pandemic continues, many of us feel the weight of the world wanting to move on and the pain of our loss that holds us tight. For us, there is no avoiding the ever-present reminder that we lost a loved one to COVID. It is with us every day, everywhere. What you hear in each story is grief, sadness, and love. We will more than likely talk about the vaccine and maybe a little bit about politics, and you may not agree. But I hope you'll keep listening. I hope you'll stay to the end of each episode and realize that each person who openly shares here has experienced deep grief over the loss of a loved one. And that's something we will all experience. We all love someone, we will all lose someone we love, and we will all grieve. These are the stories of those we lost to COVID. Thanks for being here with me. I've got a wonderful show coming up for you. Today I'll be talking to Deidre in Oklahoma. Deidre lost her parents to COVID just 16 days apart. Her stepfather, Asa, died on December 27th, 2020, and her mom, Catherine, on January 13th, 2021. Deidre was able to be with both of her parents when they passed away and talks a lot about the difficulties of losing them and how isolated she felt. When we finished recording, Deidre sent me a beautiful email about her parents. She said her mom's giggle was so contagious and she was her best friend, and losing her has left a strange hole in Deidre's heart that feels so heavy. She also wrote that her stepdad always claimed her as his own. He didn't have to, but he did, and she will always be grateful to him for that. She said that mourning them both has been difficult. She wrote that going through their clothes was probably one of the hardest tasks, and she hugged their outfits as they hung in the closet as a way of getting one last semblance of their arms around her and having one last real connection with them. For context, we recorded this episode on April 12th, 2022. Deidre credits a Tuesday Tribe on Facebook with getting her through the darkest grief moments. She also mentions the In America Flags installation, the COVID Survivors for Change memorial event in Washington, D.C. in April of this year, and the Ramey's Heart COVID-19 Memorial. All those links are in the show notes below. And with that, I'd like to welcome Deidre to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Jennifer.
And you live in Oklahoma.
Correct. Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I've been there many times. Many times. My dad taught air traffic controlling there for a number of years at the airport. And then right now he lives in eastern Oklahoma, right on the Arkansas border.
Right. That's so cool because my stepfather actually he grew up in Arkansas, and then after he met my mom, they lived here in Oklahoma. But it's just such a small world when you talk to someone and you know the different places and stomping grounds. It's so cool.
Yep, it is. And we're talking today about your mom and your stepdad, and you lost them in late December and then January 2021. So December 2020 and January 2021.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. So that was during one of the peaks, it was the, not the Delta surge, it was the first winter
Yeah.
of everything in 2020.
Yeah. So they lived in Oklahoma City near you?
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Um, they actually, they actually lived in my childhood home that
Oh.
had been my home all my life. And um, my stepfather and my mother married when they got together when I was 13.
Mm.
And so I've been really close to my stepfather. He was an artist and um, a golfer, and he was a lot of fun. Um, he loved me.
Yeah.
He chose to love me, and that's why there's something to be said about some step parents get a bad name.
Mhm.
I've been very blessed in that department, um, that my step parents they chose to love me and love me like their own.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
that's a special thing.
it is. It really is.
Yeah. So then let's go back to March of 2020 and just for a few minutes talk about how you first heard about COVID and the changes that your family made and your parents and how just having COVID like all of a sudden come up changed your lives and what you did.
Oh, that's a good, yes, that's a good question. I think everybody has their own recollection of what happened in the beginning of all this. Um, when I was first hearing about COVID and our family was first hearing about it, it didn't seem real. And it didn't seem like something is that really gonna affect us, in the US? And I had some friends and neighbors that were doing a little bit of prepping as a way, and they're the ones that kind of put it on my radar.
Mhm.
My parents watched the news religiously, and they knew all about it. And when we got the orders to shelter in place, that's exactly what we did. My husband works at one of the hospitals here locally. I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen again. I'm sorry. My husband works at one of the hospitals here locally, and um, we were nervous. We were
Mhm.
nervous. I have me. It's me, my husband, and my daughter, who at that point was 8 or almost 8, 7. And my parents, they weren't the most healthy. They weren't the most healthy, but they sheltered in place. My grandmother, we had just gotten into a nursing home, and
Mm.
she when we were told we had to shelter in place, they locked us out. We couldn't see her. It was something me and my mom had been taking care of her every day, for the last couple of years. Before that, every day, and making sure, so that was a lot of energy, and all of a sudden we couldn't see her.
Mhm.
They took it very seriously. And as things developed, it was a very big deal to them. They did not want to die alone. They didn't want to catch it. They didn't want to die alone in the hospital. It was a real fear that they had. And as everything kind of developed, at first it was nice to be able to be at home. That sounds
Mhm.
crazy, I know, but at first it was. It was kind
Yeah.
of nice to not be expected anywhere. Um, but I had been in school. It was my senior year in college, and I was also PTO president, parent teacher organization president at my child's elementary school. And we had just gotten done with a fundraiser, and I was used to doing newsletters and volunteers. I was just all over the place, super busy. And all of a sudden now I'm doing classes online and I'm teaching my kid online and I can't see my family. As the summer progressed, so we tried to get out more. Um, Outside seemed less scary. My mom, I would go over and I'd bring things here and there, whether it was food or just whatever she needed. We did see each other a couple of times in person. We would meet outside to see my grandma through the window at the nursing home.
Yep.
And we would FaceTime, but I think I maybe got to see my mother in person 3 times in 2020. And that is crazy. That's
Yeah.
crazy. Because they were being particularly careful. They were being really, really careful. As we started coming back into the fall, like August, September, the numbers started going up again. And everybody kind of went right back to their ways of, backing up and locking down. The schools didn't restart, on site or anything. And I mean, I know there's spikes up and down. My parents got sick. Unfortunately, here in Oklahoma, we had a snowstorm, ice storm, and they didn't have electricity for 16 days.
Oh my.
And that was, I know you can never really know usually where someone might pick up COVID, but I'm almost certain that's where. Because they, I told, my stepfather uses a CPAP,
Mhm.
and I was worried about him breathing at night, and I was worried just about her staying warm because it is like cold.
Yeah.
I mean, we had ice all over the trees and everything. And so I asked them to come here. Well, the same moment I asked them to come here, like within 10 minutes, my husband called and let me know that he'd been exposed at the hospital. At
Oh.
which point I called them back and was like, don't come here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want that. You don't come here, but let's find you a hotel. And if I'll pay for it, just, you know, find a hotel that'll take your dogs so you can all be together and I'll pay for it. So they drove around until they found one. And, we were trying to, because of the power issue, a lot of people were in hotels already and had booked the hotels sooner, but some people got their power back. So some people were getting out. They found a place, one of those places you can access from the outside, like you weren't traveling into the base of the building and up. It was, a door from the outside.
Yeah.
And so they were there for, it was less than a week, but by the time they got home, they were coughing, and we just wouldn't have thought it was COVID. I don't know why we wouldn't have thought it was COVID, but we wouldn't have thought it was because they had just been so super careful. We hadn't seen each other, and yeah, it was awful. Thanksgiving, we were doing an online Thanksgiving, like a Zoom session,
Mhm.
and they didn't make it onto the Zoom session. And I remember being a little sad by it, but I called and she said they just weren't feeling very well and, sorry, they were sleeping. I did not put it together. I still didn't. Even at that point, I didn't put it together. Um, the next day, my mom called me to let me know my stepfather had been in the car and wouldn't come out. And I didn't understand what she meant. And she said, he's been out there for a few hours. I've gone out there to try and get him to come in. She's like, I don't think he can feel his legs. What had ended up happening was he was lacking oxygen and he was falling asleep and he wasn't able to move his legs. So he couldn't drive, but he also couldn't get out of the vehicle.
Oh, how scary.
Yes, yes. And they were all also very fiercely independent. Um, my stepfather was 50, 57, and my mom, she was 64, 64, 65. Sorry, those things feel unimportant at the moment, So they were older, but not, this isn't an 85-year-old grandparents. These are still vibrant parents. But
Oh, yeah. I don't think at all of 57 and 64 as old. I think of them as people who have a lot of life left to live. I'm over 50, so I want to think that, I'm halfway through right
well,
now.
well, I mean, that's what I would have thought too. So thank you.
Mhm.
That makes me feel good. Well, you get to the school and you have mothers that are, you know, in early 20s, and then other mothers there in their late 40s, and you just never know where someone
Yeah.
falls. But he eventually, I had to tell my mom. I kind of coached her on what to say. I said, "You got to go out there.
Mhm.
You got to go out there and ask him what his plan is. Is he giving up right now? Like, is he just not? Is he giving up?" Because he wouldn't let her call 911.
Mm.
I said that mom, you need to tell him that he has to choose. Is he going to live or not? Because I didn't realize that it was as serious as it was. I didn't think he was going to have to go to a hospital. I was thinking he was having, circulation issues and being super stubborn, because he was super stubborn. Um, and she just didn't have the energy to sit out there with him and put up with him being stubborn. So she said she practiced what I told her, went out there, and that he said, "Yes, I choose to live. Of course, we'll figure this out. Let's figure out what's going on with me." And he said, "Let me just go inside so I can use the bathroom, and then we'll figure it out." Apparently, she went to the side of the door to try and help him. And of course, he was bigger than her, and he couldn't feel his legs. And he just fell out of the car, hit his head on the driveway. And about that moment, my mom said it started sleeting like raining ice on them.
Mm.
And she called 911. At which point, I stayed on the line the whole time because she told me not to come over. She's like, "Don't come right now. Um, but just stay on the line with me so I can have you help me answer these questions." And so I did. And they got him, the paramedics came pretty quick. They got him. By the time he was loaded in the ambulance, his oxygen level was in the 40s.
Oh, wow.
Um, they were concerned for my mom because they could tell she didn't feel well either. But I actually went over there after they took him to the hospital. I went over there and checked on her, brought her Gatorade. I like trimmed her toenails. Like, I
Mhm.
just, spent time. She let me in, and we got to see each other. And I could tell she didn't feel well. But somebody's light, your light is always bright when you are that type of person.
Mhm.
Even when you don't feel well, your light will shine because you're you.
Yeah.
After I visited for a while, I got home. She called me back to let me know that the doctors had called her and that my stepfather was positive for COVID, meaning that she probably had COVID and she probably exposed me.
Yeah.
And she was upset about it. Um, and within the next couple of days, we were just keeping track of my stepfather, um, my mom, who I believe was in better health. Uh, she wasn't always answering the phone, which freaked me out. About this time, I was getting sick as well. My husband was getting sick.
Oh, boy. Wow.
He had ended up, within 3 or 4 days, he ended up sick. He tested positive for COVID, but that was from a different exposure.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I had COVID as well. Ironically, through the whole thing, I didn't get it. I tested for the antibodies and everything,
Hmm.
but I didn't. My doctor thinks I probably had the flu, but I also think for some reason I had to keep my together.
Yeah.
I had to keep my stuff together.
Yeah.
So something protected me for sure. But while I was sick, I kept calling her and checking in and making sure. My husband, we would do little porch drops, and I could tell that she wasn't able to keep up with updates from the hospital, so I was taking that over. And she wasn't communicating. She just wasn't communicating as well. I was worried about her oxygen too. And so my husband dropped her off an oximeter, and I made her tell me her numbers or take a picture and text it to me a couple times a day. She was falling asleep on the phone with me. The doctor, I told her at one point, I said, Mom, unless you get on the phone with your doctor and unless they tell me not to call 911 because we have a quantifiable number that you should be at before we do, I'm going to call 911 on you because you're not sounding, you don't sound okay. And so she let me get on the doctor with three-way with her, and it was basically if she goes below 90, that's a concern.
Yeah.
And she was getting close a couple of times, and I think I caught her. She wasn't answering the phone because she was sleeping through the phone. And I had finally woke her up once, and which makes me feel bad because I was waking her up when she didn't feel well, but also, what do you do? And I'm passing out in the middle of this too. I have her on FaceTime, and she's just waking up, and I'm like, just put your oximeter on your finger, and it registered at like 79. And so I had to tell her, I said, she's like, no, that's just because I was waking up. And then even after she did it, you know, 5 minutes later, it was still low in the mid 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, Mom, we have to call the paramedics for someone to come check you. You understand? Like, about, it's not about them taking you away or doing something that you don't want them to have done. It's about someone coming and checking and making sure you're okay. Because if they don't have to take you, they're not going to.
Yeah.
But if they need to, they are. And you want that. You
Yeah.
want the help. And my husband actually did have to get on the phone because he works at a hospital. He's a board certified infectious disease pharmacist.
Wow.
And he he basically told her, like, Kathy, we are I think what we're trying to do is just give you the heads up. We're going to call. We're
Yeah.
calling them. If you want to get your purse together, if you want to get something together, that's great. This is what the heads up is for. But we're
Mm-hmm.
calling because your numbers are not okay and we love you.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was surreal.
And when was this, in December?
So that was actually December 4th.
Oh.
Yeah,
So early in the month, like right after Thanksgiving, everything just happened all at once.
right. So
Yeah.
within a few days of my father going, my mom went. Um, they did like the regular oxygen pressure on her. I'm sure a lot of people probably have a similar story in that regard. They tried oxygen, then they had to be ventilated, incubated, and put on the vent. But they had already done that with my stepdad. He'd already gotten intubated and put on the vent. He So she knew he was there, and she didn't know he was there. I mean, she knew he was there, but he didn't know she was there. My mom was on regular oxygen for the first 2 days, and anytime we were trying to call and talk to her, she was struggling with it, breathing for her. She's like, I need to breathe with it. And freaked me out. She had actually, they FaceTimed me, and I felt like I was getting forced at first. I felt like I was being, like, she was told that there was only a 10% chance she would survive if she was put on the vent.
Oh my goodness, they told her that?
They told her that, yes.
Oh,
So here she is in the hospital alone, and our family never, we never let anybody go to a hospital or to a medical procedure or anything with a doctor alone. You don't leave family alone in the hospital. Somebody's going to be with you all the time. Like, that's how we operate.
yeah.
And they're my people and I'm theirs. And now they're both in the hospital. So it was not, everything felt off and surreal. And then when I do get a hold of my mom, I was having issues getting a hold of them, of course, because, it's a surge during a pandemic. I was having issues getting a hold of them through the regular nurses line and issues getting a hold of her through her cell phone. At one point, I could tell she couldn't breathe and she needed help, and they hadn't come in. Now, mind you, everybody, they have to garb up head to toe to go inside these rooms to treat the COVID patients. So even if they saw somebody needed immediate help, it's going to take them a moment because they have to garb up head to toe to go in. And when I could tell she was in distress, and they kind of surprised me. Sorry, I'm backtracking here a little bit. They surprised me when I got on the phone and they said, okay, and your name's Deidre? And I said, yes. And they were like, okay, well, then she can be a witness. She's a witness. And then basically they said, your mother chose not to be, she's refusing to be ventilated if it comes to that. And then I heard them say the whole thing, and they're saying just a 10% chance of survival. And I was like, whoa, hey, mom, are you sure about that? And, and she's nodding yes and everything. Well, so that bothered me when that conversation happened, because I wasn't sure of the actual stat. I mean, this isn't a developing issue right here. COVID, we don't know everything. We still didn't know then. The whole family was just waiting for the vaccine, to be honest. We felt like once we could get vaccinated, we could be together again. She could play with her granddaughter again. We could go see my grandma from the nursing home again. Like, things were going to go back to normal as soon as we could get the vaccine. Here it is in December, 2020. So close. So close.
Yeah.
But while she was distressed after I got a hold of her, she needed help. I sent my husband on another phone I said, somebody needs to get in there and help her right now. And they're not. And my husband got on another phone, and I don't know what he did, to be honest, but he worked his way through you know, the voice prompts and the right people, and they had somebody in there pretty quick. While we were waiting on that to happen, I told my mom just to breathe the best she could and listen to me. And I gave her a pitch on why the ventilator might be an option.
Mhm.
I said, Mom, I'm not saying that you get to choose this. Your will, you get to have, your will is what's gonna happen. I'll make sure we do what you want. But also, if you need it, I would hate to think you didn't try it, because the 10% chance of survival stat, I mean, that might be what they're thinking they see there, but that's not the stat.
Mhm.
Um, and I just, my husband, even while he was waiting, we were just kind of going over it. She didn't say anything. We were like, don't worry about talking. They're coming as fast as they can. They're right outside. And she was just freaking out, so bad to breathe. I, at that point, made sure, one of the nurses earlier that day, I had made sure to send along my power of attorney, um,
Yeah.
so that if she wasn't able to make a decision, that they knew I could do that for her.
Yeah.
By the time the nurse came in, she was begging for the ventilator.
Oh.
So I had talked her into considering it, not knowing she was going to turn right around and say, please, please, I can't breathe, you know. And it
Yeah.
was awful. It was awful to hear her panicked like that.
Mm.
Um, they came in, pushed a button, apparently, that like sedated her immediately. She couldn't find the button to even hit the nurse's station, which was like an inch away from her hand, I guess. That's how far, mentally she was. She didn't have her senses about her. So they did end up ventilating her. I'd given my permission. She was begging for it before, they sedated her.
Mhm.
And she never woke up.
It's gotta be terrifying to not be able to breathe. I
Yeah.
can't even imagine.
No, me either. I think that's got to be. I think that's got to be the worst. It's got to be the worst way. Mm.
Were you able to have any kind of FaceTime call with your stepdad before he was ventilated?
Not before, but I was able to FaceTime actually with both of them. They they had called me in once for my mom. Uh, they didn't think she was going to make it. And he told me that I could come in physically um, and be with her to say goodbye. And I did. I did that, and I stayed for as long as I possibly could. I played her music. I stood there for 3 hours until the my mask was wet, my shield was, condensating from all the tears. My hands were sweaty. Everything was just super uncomfortable, and I had nowhere to sit. But I didn't want to leave.
Yeah.
But she actually rallied after that. Her stats went up, and they continued to help her. So she was in there a total of 30 days. I would get to FaceTime with her at night,
Mhm.
and the nurses were so very sweet to help me out. I would just, I'd read to her. I just didn't know if she could hear me.
Mhm.
And if she could at all, if there was a chance she could hear me, I wanted to talk.
Yeah.
Um, and the same with Asa, same with my stepdad. I FaceTimed with him too. These poor nurses, bless their heart, like they were at the same hospital, which was apparently kind of unique because they didn't know every place was running out of space.
Yeah.
So we're in Oklahoma City, and they at first were thinking my mom would have to go to Tulsa. From the time, what was it, 5 days, 4 or 5 days since my stepfather went in, um, they opened a brand new COVID ICU on another floor, and she got one of the beds in that floor. Uh, so that was very much a blessing. At least they could be at the same hospital here in town.
Yeah.
I had every expectation at least one of them would come home. Um, but my stepdad, through all this, I was okaying surgeries and such, and then FaceTiming with both of them whenever I possibly could, whenever it made sense. Usually in the evenings when they weren't as busy. My my stepdad got the trach surgery so that he could have the vent through his neck.
Mhm. Mhm.
which is good because it's not down your mouth, into your mouth, into your throat. If you're going to have to be on it longer, usually a week. I think with COVID, they were waiting 2 weeks if necessary, but only if you're stable enough. And he was showing great improvement. He and the social worker at the hospital for him had scheduled him basically to go to a rehab center within a couple of days.
Huh.
He was getting weaned off the vent slowly but surely. He was doing well. He was at one point when we FaceTimed, I had his dogs with me, and they had told me, had asked me not to tell him about my mom, that they wanted him to keep fighting.
Mm-hmm.
So that was hard.
Yeah.
So his eyes were open. I could tell he could see me and understand me. We prayed, and I told him I was just, because he could see his dogs. I said, I'm just taking care of your puppies since mom's not feeling very well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all. I left it at that. He couldn't speak yet, but then I could tell he was trying to tell me something. So we started playing um, charades, I guess,
Yeah.
like a bit of charades. And what it came down to was he was in pain and needed pain meds. So I was able then to get on my phone and ask the nurse to come back into the room and give him pain meds. And
Wow.
he was grateful. And that was the last conscious conversation, even though it wasn't a two-way conversation. It was the last conversation we had, because he actually coded. They brought him back. And when they brought him back, I don't want to say brain dead, but that basically there was no activity,
No brain activity.
no brain activity. At which point I did get to go up there. All the ICU rooms were, glass, and they did let me come up there. And from what I understood, most people weren't allowed at all. So I felt very blessed to have been able to be there. And I went into the room. I guess a lot of people didn't go into the rooms either.
Yeah.
But I went into the room. I held his hand. I played him. I played him a medley of songs. And then they came in and they stopped the ventilator, which of course was breathing for him. And then I got to see my mom after that. And they did everything they could for her. She was there another couple of weeks before we had to let her go too. It was a lot. It was a
Yeah.
lot.
Were you able to be there with your mom as well?
I was, and I thought that I was gonna be, weirdly, I thought somehow that I was gonna be more prepared. Because as much as it hurt to see my stepdad go, um, I got to hold his hand. I got to tell him at that point, that mom's up one story above him to say hi as he goes. And as much as I didn't want it to happen, I could, I was processing it. And I had technically already been once and seen my mom and gone through, and they told me that they thought she wasn't going to make it, and they were giving me the option. She had they had to do a lot of different things. They did a lot of different things to try and save her. They did the best they could, from putting tubes in for two different tubes in for collapsed lungs, the COVID pneumonia,
Yeah.
a lot of things. My niece and nephew actually came up to be there and say goodbye when it happened. Um, I had warned them that I didn't expect to see what I saw, and I immediately felt guilty. I felt like I should have let her go sooner. She looked like a shell of herself. It was haunting, actually. And we played music. We had the chaplain in there to say a prayer. And I held her hand until she passed. Even with it being as haunting as it was, um, I don't know what it is, but maybe it's when people are in the hospital and they're under or they're sedated. She looked so young. She just looked young.
Yeah.
And I remember that. It just feels confusing, you know?
Yeah.
So I got to do that in under two, what was it? I think it was 16 days apart, something like that. 16 days apart.
And right through the entire holiday season of
Right.
2020.
Right. And my husband had COVID during that time. Also, with both parents in the hospital, the nursing home calls me to let me know that my grandmother tested positive for COVID
Oh.
and that they needed to isolate her. Well, she has Alzheimer's,
Mm.
so that I was worried about them moving her. What happened was they had just gotten, so their nursing home was the first nursing home in the state to get the vaccine. And she had gotten the vaccine, the first shot of the vaccine that day.
Oh, wow.
And I guess apparently, because they were testing every 3 days, one of the tests were caught up in the lab and the results just came back late. So even though the most recent test had said she was negative, the one before it said it was positive, but they got it back the same day she got the vaccine.
Wow.
And I had asked for them to, like, can we test her again before you move her? With Alzheimer's, it's not,
Yeah.
moving them can cause some major issues health wise.
Well, and the mental distress.
Right, the stress. Well, and for me, I was like, all of a sudden, I didn't have my mom who would have regularly handled, managing this kind of thing, and I would do whatever she wanted. Now all of a sudden, I'm making the calls.
Yeah.
I'm just like learning to adult really hard, really fast.
Yeah.
um, so that was interesting. I stayed on the phone, FaceTimed with my grandmother. She had plastic put over her door, and if anybody came in, they were wearing a full suit, which freaked her out because she has Alzheimer's, so she doesn't understand why anybody's in a mask or, you know, anything like that. She's still texting my mom while she's in the hospital, not aware and not understanding that she's not going to see her right now. And yeah, so I remember staying on the phone with her and falling asleep with her on FaceTime because I didn't want them to come and get her to move her to a COVID unit and her to feel scared because I couldn't physically be there. So I thought, okay, if I can just be on the phone with her, that should provide some sort of peace. And of course, um, they don't do it that night. They do it early in the morning and they leave her phone behind.
Oh.
So then I go to the nursing home. I wait outside, have someone go find her phone. Then I take it physically over to the COVID unit, make calls, wait outside till someone comes out to get it and gives it to her. Like I just, just being the runner, just doing the thing that is hard when everybody has so many demands on themselves. So she was there and that was the other thing. I had just delivered her Christmas presents. So they gave her Christmas presents, and then put plastic all over her door. You know, it was just unfortunate timing.
Yeah.
I was sick during this time too, but not as bad as like my husband. He was. doing circles and laps in the front room, and he had a really hard time. Had a really hard time. He's actually still a long. He's a long hauler.
Oh.
Uh,
Oh.
so yeah. So that's COVID has definitely affected our lives in every.
Every way.
Mhm. Oh, my daughter didn't go back to school till 2 months ago. So she went back to in-person school 2 months ago, and they were all wearing masks at the time.
Hmm.
We love her school. We just weren't comfortable like everybody else was more comfortable before we were.
Yeah.
But uh, even today, I noticed she's still wearing her mask all the time. I asked her, don't get me wrong, I'm fine with that, but I
Hmm.
just asked her if there was a particular reason. Is there something she's particularly worried about? Are people coughing? Are there, she's 10 now.
Yeah.
And she just said it makes her feel safe.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, whatever makes you feel safe, that's fine.
Yeah. So I'm gonna assume that you did not have a funeral or memorial for your stepdad or your mom right after they passed.
No,
Have you done that yet?
it did. We did have a funeral 7 months later. They had already bought a plot.
Mm.
So that let me know, you know, that let me know. I knew what their wishes were because they
Yeah.
had purchased the plot. And yeah, like right after we had to let them both go, I went right out to the hospital parking lot and called a crematorium and did all the stuff for them to be picked up.
Yeah.
However, when I picked up my stepdad's ashes, it smelled like the ashes themselves smelled like the hospital.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know why. Like that's always an interesting feeling. Like you go to pick up a
Hmm.
parent's ashes, and you buckle them in to the front seat,
Yes.
and like I'm like, okay, what do you want to listen to? Like I don't know. What do you think? We're gonna put on our we're gonna put on a jam. I know that you'd appreciate because
Mm.
this makes you feel crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
My mom had she went to church, and the funeral home, the man who owned it was a member of her church. And
Oh,
so I knew what her wishes were as well, and had taken care of all of those things ahead of time because she had Alzheimer's. And he is a funky old guy. He has a black motorcycle with a sidecar and a hearse that he pulls behind it, like a black glass sort of coffin, sort of like the haunted mansion at Disneyland.
oh my
And
gosh, that's so cool.
yeah, he pulled up in front of my house with my mom in that back coffin part, in the bag and the box that she was in, and he had the lights on and these sirens going, and he looped around the block twice with her
Oh,
and brought her to me.
oh my god, that's amazing.
She would have loved that, and he knew that, and the fact that he knew her personality, and that I knew that wherever she was, she thought that was the coolest thing ever. It's so crazy what makes you smile and laugh and cry all at the same time.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, I want that now. Like I want to show him. I want that.
Okay.
Oh god, that's so cool. Yeah, it is. It's crazy what'll make you smile, and
Yeah.
we all know that none of us are getting out alive. You hear all the different sayings. Everybody has a saying. Um, there's a lot of different things that you either appreciate or that feel offensive. I think people asking me if COVID was actually listed on their death certificates, or, if you said, yeah, I've lost a parent to COVID, or I've lost my parents to COVID, that they, oh, well, did they have comorbidities, or did they have secondary, whatever it wasn't killing them. It was because they were alive, so that people don't realize that's kind of, it's offensive.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
It's dismissive is what it is. And it's because everybody's gotten so tired of not being able to live life. I get it. I get it. That's not, now we have different treatments and ways to help with COVID, as we knew would happen. But it just, it's surreal. And I think I have a Tuesday night tribe through this Facebook group that have multiple losses. And I have to admit that if I hadn't had them, I don't really know how well I would have fared through all this. And they, just being able to share stuff like that,
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, somebody asked me about the death certificate, or, oh, this happened today. If I hadn't had that, we all say that COVID death just feels a lot different
Mhm.
than other death. And we have very young and older, people in their 80s on the group, and people in their early 30s. And I think that's one of the things that they all kind of agree. They're like, a COVID death is different.
Mhm.
It's just not, you lack the process, you lack mourning with your family,
Yeah.
and you delay everything. And a lot of people missed. I was blessed, super blessed, that I could even be there in person. So I wasn't sure. By the time it was my mom passed, I had gotten it was verified that they had done the antibodies test on me. So my husband really didn't want me to go up there.
Yeah.
And
Because you didn't have COVID and he was worried about you getting it.
yes, right. I didn't have COVID, which,
Mhm.
so once we found out that I didn't have, I couldn't have had COVID through, even though I'd been sleeping in the same bed with my husband who had it,
Yeah.
and been around my mom who had it, and been up at the hospital and all this, he was worried about me going in again, which I appreciate, I have a daughter, I get that, but
Yeah.
oh, there's no way that I couldn't be there with my mom
Yeah.
if I had the opportunity. And I know she would, you know what I mean? They both would have done the same for me.
Mhm.
I'm just, I just hate that it's exactly the way they didn't want to die.
Yeah.
That part sucks.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's, we were, I had their ashes together in the front room until
Mhm.
we had their funeral in the summer. Actually, had it, or their funeral, we had a joint funeral for them. And we did it on her birthday.
Oh.
You
Oh,
know,
that's precious. Yeah.
her birthday is the first day of summer, June 21st.
Mhm.
So it was going to be a rough day no matter what.
Yeah.
But I felt like it was kind of cool to excuse me, to get together one last time for my mom
Yeah.
on her birthday. And because it was summer, she did actually have some people show up, which was great. It's just a blur. And 2 years now? No. Yeah. Uh, Time is so weird.
Yeah, it is weird. It's been what, 15 months?
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
for my mom, it's about a year and a half now, and it seems like just yesterday I was at the window of her memory care visiting her. It time is such a time warp for me, for feeling her loss, the grief. The last time I saw her seems like it was yesterday.
right. And the further away the time gets, it. It hurts
Mhm.
because you can't believe it's been that long. And even this long, like this many months later, and I still feel the sorrow. Like she's, what did I say? She's like the sky.
Mhm.
The weight of her absence, I just didn't expect it to be so heavy. For something to be gone, you don't expect it to be so heavy. And she's like the sky in the sense that she's draped over everything. I mean, everybody loves their mom. I was very close to my mom. I think what it is, you lose your compass, you lose your safety net, you lose so much when you lose your mom.
Yeah. Someone told me after I told them I lost my mom, they said, "Oh, moms are big." And that is exactly how it feels. I did not have a great relationship with my mom growing up and through a lot of our adult life, but once she got Alzheimer's, and more than anything, just through a bunch of circumstances that were kind of random, I ended up being the person who was her person. I had medical power of attorney. I saw her almost every day. I did all those things. My sister came over and helped sometimes too, and it was wonderful because my mom had someone else to focus on. But I feel like all of that love that we built in the last, 5 years, that she was here and that I was taking care of her, just oh, yeah, it's heavy. It was heavy, and all of a sudden, she wasn't there, and I didn't have to go to the window, and there weren't video calls, and every single part of what I did in my day was all of a sudden different.
Yeah, everything changed.
Yeah, everything.
Well, and it's weird. It's not. It's not just about like a purpose or a compass. Even it's about, how do you put it, an unconditional love.
Mhm,
Like you gave your mom so much love and time and energy because of the unconditional love
mhm.
that comes from a mom. I would imagine. I don't know. That's what I'm thinking. At least what
Yeah,
we usually think of when you think of a parent.
yeah.
I felt that way about my mom. But I think when it's gone is the hard part.
Mhm.
Understanding that the love is still supposed to be, but it's not because they're not here. And goodness, I really didn't think I was going to sound like
Mhm.
like this. One of the things I also say is that love is a bond death cannot depart. But damn, it tries. Um, it's not easy. But I can only imagine how quiet you were taking care of her day after day.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was. Yeah. I went in and visited her. We would take her out shopping until she couldn't go anymore, and we used to take her out to a Wednesday night dinner, and my nephew always came to dinner with her. None of some of my kids did when they were in town, but they didn't live here all the time, and so anybody visiting would come to dinner on Wednesday nights, and we did that until she couldn't go out anymore. And then I would just go sit and watch Hallmark movies with her, which Hallmark movies are not my favorite thing, but she loved them. And
What is
so
that? Moms and Hallmark
I
movies.
know it's
You.
crazy, right?
It is. It's a thing. I swear. They love it.
Yep. Oh, I tried to get her to watch a Netflix movie that the Prince one, the Christmas movie that came out, and she thought there was too much kissing. That's what she said.
Jennifer, I love it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so sweet. Like how chaste and sweet of her.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah. So you mentioned a COVID group on Facebook, and one of the things that you've been through is the 1 year of their passing, and it falls around the holiday. So what did you do to help you cope and get through that time, and how has this group helped you?
That's a good question. For their anniversaries, I made a post on Facebook. I really kind of went social media silent after all this because I was giving updates on both of them and their well-beings and everything until they passed, and then I, many months later, shared information about their funeral. There just doesn't seem to be a reason to check social media or care about that stuff anymore. It's just not important. Except this group is through Facebook, and if it hadn't been for that, I probably wouldn't even be on there. They have been instrumental in feeling heard and not alone, in the sense that even just looking at the group on Facebook, you see people at all different stages of losing someone to COVID. And that's the thing, it's not over.
Yeah.
Somebody's losing someone to COVID right now.
Yes.
That's happening. Um, so you can see people at different stages saying different things, hurting, you know. Um, you might find posts that make sense. And I mean, I guess it depends on your perspective, but some people might look at the group, like just the page, and think, oh, why, if I'm hurting already, why would I go here to see everybody else's pain too?
Yeah.
And it's not that. It's really not that. It's about you feel so alone.
Mhm.
And after being boarded up and separated and 6 feet apart and told to stay away, the world at large, and then having such a huge loss, alone just has a whole new feeling. So to not feel alone, knowing that other people, which, God forbid, you don't want that to be the case, but knowing that other people are having a type of experience like yours, or, fill in the blank, whoever they have lost, or whatever multiple people they've lost, you just don't feel as alone in your sorrow. My group with the multiple losses, we get together on a Zoom session, and I think that I hate that this is how we met, but I love all the different personalities on there, and I know them, and I care about them. Now, it's not a very large group, but there's one girl from Scotland. She's so sweet. Um, she lost both her parents too, and her aunt has Alzheimer's, which is crazy because that's, I lost both parents. My grandma has Alzheimer's, and we're both like the caretakers. I just wouldn't have expected to find someone in that kind of situation. And out of the 10 people on that Tuesday night, she's one of them. She's all the way in Scotland,
Yeah.
but I found her, like that's so cool. Um, and getting to hear, just like with this podcast, getting to hear people's stories about what they experienced as they
Yeah.
lost someone that they loved to COVID. Um, it's just painting a picture of this time in a way that is, I don't want to say it's easier to digest because it's not easier to digest, but I guess it's like painting a picture and then it getting clear because you know more.
Yeah.
It's not as scary and you don't feel as alone. And that can mean so much when you're hurting. So they they're great. We make sure that everybody shares if they want to each time, and then if somebody has an anniversary coming up, we make sure they share first. Whether it's a frustration, we try to stay away from politics or anything like that.
Yeah.
And our group also very much, hey, we believe in science. We're pro-vaccine. If somebody's coming on here to be anti-vaccine, like we don't want to hear it. Sorry,
Yeah.
like that's kind of where we are. Because a lot of the people on there have lost, just like me, have lost their loved ones before a vaccine was available,
Mhm.
and that sucks. I actually got the vaccine. It was a snowy day in Oklahoma, and I just waited outside of a vaccine clinic Uh, I was in a group, I wouldn't have been able to get one. I was just hanging out in case I let them know if you have any extras or somebody doesn't show up for their appointment, let me know. I
Yeah.
just hung out for a couple hours, and they did. They had two people that didn't show up, and the vaccines actually expire,
Yeah.
so the shelf life is only so good for so long. So it felt surreal
Yeah.
getting the first vaccine. Didn't change much of my behavior. Like I still didn't go out anywhere. I still didn't do anything.
Yeah.
But it was the idea that all of a sudden it was life affirming for me, thinking, okay, I'll be here for my daughter.
Mhm.
And that was very good. But I
Yeah.
just I said, we don't talk about that stuff, and then I talk about it, of course. Um that's about right.
How are things in Oklahoma? I know your daughter just went back to school a couple months ago, but do you feel like where your family is at with your views about COVID and that COVID's not over is different than where you're living overall?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's very much different. And I don't know how much of that is it's hard to be in the middle of a situation and be able to properly read, the climate at large
Mhm.
or the feelings at large on something. And I'll be honest, I'm not political in such a way I even understand. I don't understand the politics. I can't.
Yeah.
That aspect of it isn't even in on my radar. But so a lot of people have, quote, gone back to normal, unquote, for quite some time. Yeah. I feel like basically after we had that big spike, we didn't, that was in January. Okay. So Omicron hit, too, like the year after my parents died, Omicron hit over that winter.
Yeah.
Is that right? Was it Omicron, Delta? Um, that's another thing. Sorrow and all this, it just messes up your. I used to be super sharp, I promise, and articulate and everything. And it's just, woo, I don't know.
It does mess up your timeline. I can totally relate to that. Yes.
I feel like it's just, yeah, it's crazy. Anyway, but so before Omicron hit, for sure, I feel like most people didn't have any limits. Most people weren't wearing masks, and it was somebody, a senator, I don't know. He they forced masks to a certain point, and then they just left it up to businesses after that. But there's no way that if it's left up to the business, how are they supposed to enforce it without getting into it? So
Mhm.
yeah, the mask mandates, I know that they've been coming down all over the US right now, but uh, Oklahoma's has been down for quite some time. And if you see somebody who was wearing a mask, I think it was probably because they knew that they were immunocompromised or something. You were aware because you could tell they were a grandparent or they were carrying oxygen with them. Um, and I just rarely ever saw. I right now, I never see anybody wearing a mask.
Hmm.
In medical settings, yes.
Yeah.
There's certain places, that will be religious about it and take it seriously because if they didn't, they couldn't be, open.
Yeah.
But as far as restaurants or anything like that, I mean, it didn't slow down.
Yeah.
It didn't. People just want to move on. And I know we've had a
Mhm.
lot of different places in America be on each end of the spectrum.
Yes.
What's it like there?
Our mask mandate was just lifted, I believe March, I wanna say March 11th or something like that. It was a Saturday. And so it's they're still required in medical facilities and, state and federal buildings around here to my knowledge. I haven't been in one recently, but I think that they still are. And then, other than that, I think around here because masks were a thing for such a long time, and there were very strict social distancing rules, and when restaurants could be open and bars and all that other stuff.
Mm,
That right now, I would say 50% of the people I see still wear them.
that's awesome.
Yeah. And
That's
I always look at people and, like you, think, they're grandmas, they're immune compromised. I also look at young people and generally just think, they're keeping their grandma safe.
yes.
Yeah.
And what is it? I remember I had okay, so over this summer, when my mom was still here, because we were FaceTiming with my grandmother in the nursing home, because that's really the only way you could see. If I was near the window, I still had to wear a mask, and then she couldn't see who we were. She knew who
Yep.
we. So we liked to FaceTime, and I had actually taken a screenshot of like every time we FaceTimed, and I put it together in a little video montage. And my mother-in-law had taken the montage and she'd done something. I think she put, you know, wear a mask for grandma, like so I can see grandma. She like made a little meme, and it was really sweet. Yeah, I do. I did see some young teenagers outside the other day that had them on, and I actually thanked them, um, just because it's so rare here.
Yeah.
But I don't know how COVID should have always been and still should be a health issue, not a political thing.
Hmm.
I hate that that's what it became.
Hmm.
It the welfare, our common welfare
Yeah.
and decency, and I feel like so many things got confused,
Hmm.
and not just confused, but just misinformation, unlike any time before. I wasn't a big news person, definitely not now,
Yes.
but
Agreed.
there's so much though. There was so much misinformation, and still is so much misinformation everywhere. I just feel really lucky to have my husband. So he's like on uh, a COVID task force at his hospital, and if it hadn't been for him being able to stay connected, educated, and provide me guidance in that department, information when I need it. Oh, for instance, like the other day, he told me, like he tells me when something happens because I won't tune in correctly. I really didn't think I was that disconnected, but apparently I am. He was like, "Yeah, Will Smith slapped Chris Rock. You should probably know that."
Yeah.
Okay, that's funny. But I mean, that's even to that point. I can't even stomach it. The news
Yeah.
is so all over the place. I hope we get back to some sort of some sort of mid mid ground or something, a new level of being able to trust certain sources again, because it just feels so. I have no idea what's happening, and we've gone
Yeah.
through so much uncertainty for so long now. It
Yeah.
would be nice to feel, and like today, I am in Oklahoma, just waiting for a tornado to touch down anytime, like
Oh,
on a
wow.
tornado watch. It's just, there's so many things in life that could take us
Hmm.
at any moment, or throw us off track, or change our plans, and to be thrown this pandemic and so many of us be affected forever. But we're not alone. The stories that you're capturing here to document what people have gone through is so important, because I don't, who knows what the narrative will be later, I guess is what I'm trying to say. That sounds so pessimistic. I promise I actually am an optimistic person. At least I used to be. Shoot. But I really do. I don't think that this time we hadn't had anything like it before, at least not with anything that we had with modern medicine, modern technology.
Yeah. Modern news that was everywhere instantaneously.
Right, exactly. Like the effect, the cause and
Yeah.
effect, and the echo. It all just. I don't know how this will end up in the history books later, but I do know that every family will have a story from this time.
Hmm.
And I'm glad that you are getting the stories down and out there, not just to honor those that we've lost, but to remember to remember our story and
Mhm.
what really happened for those that were most affected.
Yeah.
Because who knows what stories will actually make it through if somebody isn't documenting them as they are
Yeah.
shared. So thank you, Jennifer. I really
Oh, you're
appreciate you.
welcome. You're welcome. I have two more questions.
Oh, I am so sorry. Yeah.
Oh, no, it's fine. I wanted to know if you had sent in your parents' names to any COVID memorial or were involved with any memorial. There's so many different ones, and I always learn something new. So I was just wondering if you had done that.
Yes, I did. So there was the White Flag Memorial in
Hmm.
Washington. I sent both of their names to that. And actually, there's the COVID week for survivors.
Is it the one that's coming up in the end of April?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I
So
don't know what it's called either.
I'm like, I know it's here. Well, so I registered. I registered because I wanted to be included on their updates. I don't really know how a lot of this works, but if it's virtual, I want to be able to participate.
Yeah.
I want to hear what's being said. I want to hear how, they're honoring our loved ones. I submitted both their names, I guess, because they're going to read off names
Yeah.
in the middle of the event. But also, that group at large has different groups, I guess, that splinter off into each state.
Hmm.
And that person in the state has actually reached out to me too, because I didn't know I actually had anybody here in Oklahoma, like anybody doing. So I'm going to learn more about that soon too.
Yeah.
Um, I believe I don't know. I swear, I have like 80,000 emails. I don't understand why it has to be so hard. COVID Survivors for Change. There you go. The National COVID Survivors for Change Remembrance COVID Week of Remembrance, Sunday, April 24th.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things where I would love to go, but being all the way across the country. And there's so many things that happen in DC, and I would love to go, but I'd have to get on a plane and then another plane and maybe even another plane
Right.
and then get over there and stay in a hotel. And I have traveled during this time and I have done things like that, but it just it seems like it's so far away to get over there, and they're doing something there almost every month, and I just haven't gone. Someday I will. Someday I will get on a plane and go over there and do something with one of the remembrances. They're planning on reading all the names that they have in one day, which I don't know how that's going to work, but I really want to witness it somehow online. Like I'm hoping that they have a camera or some sort of live feed so I can watch it for a while.
Well, surely. I hope they can. Yeah. Surely they do. I don't know how you could get them all read in one day.
That's what I was thinking too. Almost a million names. I mean, I know they won't have all 1 million, but that's a lot of names.
yeah, they'd have to have maybe different microphones going, different people.
Yeah.
But that would be and that's something I really hope we see happen in the next year is actual memorials,
Hmm.
not just temporary installations. We got to see a lot of people taking it upon themselves. That's one of the things I think that has been beautiful out of it. Like it's the group no one wants to be a part. No one asked to be a part of. No one wants to be a part of this group. But if you've lost someone to COVID, and you're
Yeah.
looking for a friend, you'll find one because we're out here, and it's just too many people at this point to not be. And some individuals took it upon themselves, to have their own flags for every person in their state that lost somebody, or anybody that requested them to do like the heart rocks on the beach. And having, I know it seems it's like, oh, I'm going to have a stranger go and paint my mother's name on a rock on the beach. that doesn't know me and doesn't know, but because we're all united by this COVID thing, and we are all united by this COVID thing, really, truly, we are all united. We've all been through experiencing it. We just have different stories during it. But that alone, just knowing somebody out there gives a damn, forgive my French, is deeply meaningful. And that's why the memorial parts, the actions alone mean so much. I would really love to. I keep trying to come up with different concepts for like a sculpture here for Oklahoma, but I'm small time. I don't know. I don't know if anybody's going to be. I mean, do we have anything permanent right now? Do you know?
The only permanent thing I know of is the beach memorial from New Jersey has been moved to a location where they have all those hearts in shadow boxes, and so they did save them all. That is the only permanent one that I know
Oh,
of right now.
that's sweet. That's really sweet. So how many hearts did they end up with? Probably a lot, I would imagine.
I believe it was 12 by the time they moved them, and they had to move them
Whoa.
because the ocean, like, summertime, wasn't gonna be good for the hearts, so that's why they moved them, but they add names, they have paving stones, they have a lot of different things with names all over, and they have gatherings there too, and you can go visit the farm when it's open anytime and see the memorial.
Oh, I love that. I wouldn't mind doing that. I mean, I think it feels just feel lost. There's not this. Yeah, and I think some people might say, "Well, it's not a war." Okay, kind of was.
Yeah,
It actually kind of. It's just. I just hope we do something to
I do
honor
too.
those because they deserve it.
Mhm.
Nobody was prepared for anything like this. Nobody would have expected it. Worldwide
Yeah.
pandemic. And I used to have someone I worked with. She was a cute, short little thing. She used to be in the military, and she would, whenever we were stressing out, I do IT work, and we'd be stressing out in the IT department, and she'd be like, "Wait, hey, is it life or death?" No,
No.
All
Yeah.
right, well then keep it in that perspective because that's where it belongs. But it feels like with COVID and the pandemic and everything that's happened, it's just the answer to that is it life or death? Yes. We think it is. It is. Like the answer there is me wearing a mask, possibly life or death. Maybe not for me, maybe it's somebody else, maybe it is me, like I don't know. Sure, it could be life or death. And that puts a new responsibility and heaviness and just anxiety and stress and perspective on everything that's happening. So, in that sense, it was life or death. It has been life or death. Almost a million. A million.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to take in. It's hard for me to even fathom a million people and all their family members who love them and mourn them and miss them.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
pain.
Yeah.
If you could somehow, I mean, I know it's not quantifiable, but if you could somehow quantify the pain and the sorrow, and maybe that's why the memorial idea seems so valuable is the rocks for the hearts. It is something tangible representing this huge loss and hole that wasn't supposed to be here.
Yeah. Yeah, especially considering we most of us, me included, were not able to have a funeral or a memorial. You couldn't go hug your family like my mom's sisters live nearby. I couldn't go see them or give them hugs or anything. So it's a rock with someone's name on it, and it was a flag with my mom's name on it and my message to her. But it is, for a long time, it was the only thing that I had,
Right.
you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
So, one last question. What do you say to people who tell you COVID isn't real?
I know I don't haven't heard anybody say this in quite some time. And to be honest, I am I've always been, at least before all this, I was always just a little bit of a hippie, a little bit like, I still sign off peace, love, empathy,
Mhm.
I like I promote compromise and getting along, and yeah. But I don't know if it's my age or the weight of experience or what, but I've started to realize it's okay to have opinions, my own opinions, and just say them at times that it makes sense. COVID deniers, people that don't think that COVID is real, I have a very mixed feeling about. I feel very sad for them, and I hate to say it, but I judge them. I judge them for sticking their head in the sand. I think that it's not. I don't know how much of it is denial and how much of it is just, you know, idiocracy. But anybody that would say that COVID isn't real, you're wrong. You're wrong. There's proof everywhere. There's loss everywhere. How anybody could justify that opinion at this point,
Hmm.
this deep into it, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Come on. There's a lot of conspiracies out there, whether it's somebody talking about the vaccine gonna microchip you, or um, a lot of crazy. Well, and there's always a lot of crazy in the world. I just think we've gotten a special flavor the last couple years.
Yeah.
And no, if there's somebody who doesn't believe COVID is real still, like at this point, um, major denial. I think they are. It's beyond. It can't just be being uneducated. It has to be like a complete disregard of authority. People that have dedicated their entire lives, and in the medical field. That, come on. I mean, I just don't. I can't believe people would even consider that's the case now. Is there a big? Are there groups out there? Is that a thing? Really? Still?
I don't really know. I know that there are people like you when I talk about my mom who have said things like, "Well, what else was wrong with her?" Or she must have been sick already. Something like that. And then when I say she had Alzheimer's, oh well, yeah. The other thing I hate is when people say that it's just a flu.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause
Mm-hmm.
I looked right at a really good friend of mine, and I was like, "Yeah, I don't wanna hear that again. It is not just a flu. My mom had the flu many times. She lived through every one."
Yep.
And I could tell that he started to say something like, "But, she was older and she had Alzheimer's." And I was like, "No, no, no. My mom was a strong, fierce woman, and this was not just a flu. She went in 12 days." And, yeah, that's how I feel.
Yes, no, you're right. You're right. The pre-existing condition was that they were alive, because
Mhm.
that's the only thing it takes to be affected by COVID and or to lose your life by COVID. Maybe the statistics are on your side if you're younger, or if you got early vaccination. Like there's different things that are going to improve your chances. At the end of the day, anybody that we lost to COVID, it wasn't because of something else. Something else didn't take their lives. COVID
COVID
did.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think enough people hear that,
Mhm.
or it's not. It's probably not popular because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It would get in the way of people's perception of just wanting to. I just want to go back to normal. I want to get my grocery store stuff. I want to go and shop at the mall. And God, it sounds very vapid, and I don't mean it in a vapid way. I mean, people need normalcy to feel mentally okay. I get there is value in needing to just be, we've all gone to a place we were, maybe visited when we were a child, and felt sentimental and felt grounded again. Like I get it. It would be great if we could go back to quote normal,
Yeah.
unquote, but for me, there will always be before COVID. There's not, it's hard stop. There's not an after COVID for me. There's a before COVID, because that's when life changed, period. Hard stop. And yeah, you're right. I do think some people, and I really think that just comes down to denying, just trying to make sense of it. And because I have seen some people that are very, very educated, intellectual people,
Mhm.
want to lean into it's just like a flu. It's not that big a deal. Nobody likes to feel scared.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel scared. I don't like feeling scared. I don't like feeling pain every day. I don't like feeling an emptiness that's also heavy all the
Yeah.
time. But it's legit and
Yeah.
it's real, and that's the truth. That's the fact. I can't. I don't think you can deny that anymore. Nobody can deny if they want to. And another reason why recording stories is important, because if we don't do it now, then how is history going to be rewritten?
Yeah.
It sounds so negative. I don't mean it negative. I mean, that's the nature of things.
Yeah.
Um,
What were your parents' names?
Catherine Ann Douglas and Asa B. Douglas.
Oh, yeah.
Mm,
Thank you. Thank you for sharing them.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this. I
Mhm.
crazy appreciate you. I hope that editing isn't too long. And I wish you luck with every podcast in the future. You are doing amazing, Jennifer. Thank you.
Thank you, Deidre. And that's the show, everyone. If you've lost a loved one to COVID and would like to share your story on the show, please send me an email. My email address is forthosewelostpodcast@gmail.com. This show won't ever have a members area or episodes that you have to pay to listen to, but there are expenses to hosting a podcast, and if you'd like to help, you can support this show at buymeacoffee.com/forthosewelost. The link is in the notes below. If you like this episode, please share the show. Share it with your friends, share it on your social media, and once you've done that, rate and review this podcast on your favorite listening platform. And then go rate it on Apple Podcast, because that's where most of our new listeners come from. Ratings and reviews are the main way this show finds new listeners. So please share the show. Until next time.